Good afternoon, I hope that you're doing well. This is, as you will have seen from the title, a little bit of a different video to what I normally make on this channel, and it's the first episode of what I'm hoping will become sort of a semi-regular knitting podcast on this channel. If you're a regular viewer, you will know that I normally share bits and bobs of my life as an artist and biotechnology student. And for anyone that is new here, hello, pleasure to meet you. My name is Sara. I'm 22 and I live in northern Italy. As I said, biotechnology student. I've now finished my bachelor's and I've started my master's in plant biotechnology, and I've always been sharing kind of my passions here on this channel, mainly as an artist and more recently journaling and very recently knitting. And I thought it'd be fun to have a little bit of a dedicated space to it on this channel, just like I do for my other hobbies. And so I thought, because I've been enjoying knitting podcasts so much, I thought it'd be fun to try my hand at one. And I hope that I'll have fun recording it every once in a while and that you will enjoy it as well. So, as a brief intro, I was taught how to knit as a kid, but it never quite clicked. That was always something that I didn't fully resonate with, and so other hobbies kind of took over it over the years, and it's something that I picked up every once in a while over the years but never really stuck with it until this summer. I picked up crochet for a little bit because I've always been curious about it, and I'm like, I have an idea of how knitting works. I had no idea how crochet works. Like, it just felt very confusing to me, and so I thought I would give it a go. And so I was crocheting for a little bit, and then I thought, well, I have yarn and I have needles because I have needles that I've used in the past, and both of my grandmothers used to knit, and my mum also knows how to knit. None of them do it regularly anymore, but I have all of their supplies, and I have them for guidance if I have any questions or if I just want to chat about it, which is really fun. So I thought I would pick it up again, and I knit myself a Sophie scarf for a Halloween costume that I needed a tiny scarf for, and I thought, this is not as bad as I remember. This is actually a lot of fun. And so it has spiraled into this a couple of months later. That was only kind of early to mid-October. And so I have a couple of finished objects to talk about today. I think 3 works in progress and also some yarn acquisitions, because I had to place a yarn order online for one of my current works in progress, and I thought to save up on shipping, I'd also pick up some yarn for other future, hopefully winter cast-ons. So we'll talk about it. I will do my best to remember to write down all of the details in the description below as well, kind of link all of the Ravelry patterns, all of the yarn names, everything like that. But I will also do my best to mention them as I'm talking through everything. So with that being said, we can get started with things. The only other thing that I do want to mention is, as I said, I am very much of a beginner knitter. I've only really started knitting more seriously a couple of months ago, but I'm a very curious and I don't know how to say it, but I'm a very confident beginner, I guess. I think that the worst thing that can happen is something doesn't work, and I can just, with knitting, I can just frog it and reuse the yarn, or I will still have learned something in the process. So I think especially a couple of the works in progress that I currently have on the needles are maybe not so much beginner projects, though I do think a lot of it looks more complicated than it actually is. It's just, they're more patience knits than they are complicated knits. We'll get into that later, but I wanted to just kind of put that out as a little disclaimer. So I'm gonna get started with my first finished object, which is my skirt number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Make sure I show you the right side. This is a pattern that came out, I think, early to mid-November, and I really liked it from the teaser photos. I really love wearing skirts, and I thought it would be really fun to knit myself kind of a black mini skirt. I don't have anything like that, and I also really liked the idea of knitting myself a skirt, because I always really struggled to find trousers that fit me, and that's why I really like round skirts, because you can just find something that fits you at the waist and then you don't have to worry about anything else. And I thought with a skirt it's really easy, if it doesn't work, I can adjust it to fit myself better. So I was really curious to try it out, and it's also something that I just really like the look of from the pictures. I will talk about the yarn very briefly first. The pattern, I think, calls for a strand of the Isia Aran tweed held with a strand of silk mohair, or a strand of silk mohair and 2 strands of the regular tweed. And I think that's a really beautiful yarn, but I would have had to order it online, and it would also have been a bit more of an expensive project. And I thought, just to give it a go, I would pick up some yarn at my local yarn store. And so I ended up knitting this in the Lanivendole Vasto wool. I have the ball band somewhere, but I don't have any yarn left. Like, I think this is literally all I have left, so I don't have any full skeins. But this is a 100% superwash merino wool, and I just thought it would be a yarn, like a good yarn for this skirt because it met gauge. I will say they have recently just gotten some undyed alpaca yarn from like an Italian small business in stock, and I was touching it because I was in the yarn store the other morning. I was touching it and it's so soft, and I think it would be so nice to knit another version of this skirt in that, to have a bit more of a similar effect to the tweed. Which is a look that I really like, but I thought to start with just a solid black basic would be really nice because majority of my wardrobe is black anyways. So in terms of the pattern, I thought it was very clear to follow. You just cast on around the waist, and then you knit a waistband casing that you then close together with the elastic inside of it. So you knit your live stitches together with a cast on edge, and you cast on using a provisional cast on. That was something that I'd never done before. I thought the provisional cast on was a little bit fiddly, but in the end I think it worked out really well, and the waistband casing is really quite neat. I also like that it has like such a thick waistband. I'll try to put some close-ups because I'm not sure like how well the black is showing up on camera. You probably can't see anything, but I really like the fact that it has kind of a thick waistband casing. I find it very comfortable, and I think it looks really cute. And then it's basically just a big stockinette tube where you work increases either side, and then the only thing that I modified about this pattern was kind of the bind off and the row that you do just before that. So because this is just stockinette essentially, the bottom edge will have a tendency to roll up, and so she has you work a technique on the last row before you bind off where you're kind of knitting into a stitch from the row before, and it's well explained, like it's got a video to go with it, and I've seen it on other videos online as well, and I tried doing that and that's 100% on me, but it turned out so wonky because this is a very solid black yarn, and I really couldn't see what leg of the stitch from the back side, from like the wrong side of the work I was meant to be picking up, and so I wasn't very consistent with it, and so my bottom edge was just so messy. So I ended up undoing my bind off and undoing that row and kind of going back a couple of rows, and I ended up going for a folded hem at the bottom. So I knit one, I purled one row, and then I knit I think 2 more rows, and then I whip stitched my live stitches with the 3rd stitch from the wrong side of the skirt, so like on the inside. And that turned out a lot neater. I think you can see it's pretty straight. It looks pretty neat. I don't have any pictures of how it looked like before, but you don't need to see it. I was also a bit unsure before blocking about the short rows, because you work short rows just after, kind of on the back, just after you finish the waistband casing and you've kind of knit that together with the elastic. You work a few short rows to kind of lengthen, like add some length to the back. And before blocking, that was really, when I tried it on, that was really just bunching up on the back, and it wasn't really sitting very well, but that blocked out very well, and so I'm really glad that I added them. It looks really nice now. I will say This doesn't quite have as much of an A-line fit as I was hoping for. I think if I were to knit it again, which I don't think is unlikely, as I said, I really want to try making a skirt version with that yarn, and it might be this one or it might be another, we'll see. But I think if I were to knit this again, I probably would modify the rate of increases just slightly, just to have a bit more room around the hips so it doesn't fit so much like a fitted garment, and it just kind of, I don't know, it just has a bit more drape, I suppose. But otherwise it does fit really well. I've worn it a couple of times this week, and I think it looks really cute. And it's really nice that you can customize the length as well, so you can, you know, make it fit you whether you're taller or shorter, or just whatever preference you have in terms of skirt length. So that is my first finished object. Then I have a bit of a smaller finished object, which is a pair of mittens. These were a lot of fun to work on, and they were a very quick project. They are the, and I will 100% butcher this name, they are the Sidanma Mittens by Hannah Levaniemi. It will be written in the description. I was looking forward to making myself a pair of mittens because the temperatures dropped really suddenly, and I go out to go to uni quite early in the morning, and I just wanted a nice pair of warm mittens that I could wear while waiting for my bus or while walking to uni and things like that. And I thought I was just going to make a very plain, just very simple plain stockinette pair of mittens with like a ribbed cuff. And then I was looking for patterns on Ravelry, and I found this free pattern for this really lovely pair of mittens. And I thought I would give it a try. I will say this only comes in one size, and it's meant to be knit at a 20 stitch gauge. I knit this at a 22 stitch gauge using the DROPS Alpaca yarn held double. I don't have any full skeins left of the white, but I do have a skein left of some beige yarn, just to show you. And this is, it's 167 meters per 50 grams, and it's 100% alpaca. So I had some of that laying around, and I thought holding that double might work nicely, and it might give me like a really nice warm fluffy pair of mittens, which it did. But I got a 22 stitch gauge on 4mm needles, which is the recommended needle size. But because the pattern only comes in one size, I think if you wanted to knit it at a different kind of, for a bit of a different size, you would have to just play with gauge. And because I have quite small hands, I was trying it on, and I figured a 22 stitch gauge would work really well for me. So I didn't do anything to actually try to meet the 20 stitch gauge. I also did a couple of modifications in terms of length. So the pattern is charted, and you do, I think in total you're meant to do 5 repeats of chart 1, and then a final repeat of chart 2 where you work the decreases to kind of close it up with the fingers. Now I didn't want a very long mitten at the cuff, and I will try one on just to show you how this looks on. But I didn't want a particularly long mitten, I didn't want it to get halfway up my forearm, because I thought that would just be really uncomfortable to kind of tuck underneath my jacket and stuff. So I skipped the first repeat of chart 1 that you're meant to do before starting the increases for the thumb, and I did a tiny bit of a longer ribbed cuff. So I think instead of doing 12 rows, I did 16. And then I started working my repeats of chart 1, and I did 3. I split for the thumb, and I finished my first 3, and I realized that I had gotten to about here, and I had maybe one more repeat worth of like finger space to be able to knit. And I knew that if I was going to do like the 4th repeat of chart 1 like I was meant to for the pattern, the mitten would have ended up being like comically long, like this long. So I skipped the last repeat of chart 1 as well, and I went straight into chart 2, and they turned out perfectly. I think they're super cute, they're really fluffy, they're very warm. Even like if I don't have them on and I just am holding them in one of the hands, my hand gets really warm, and that's really lovely. I will say I've not blocked these. Maybe I should. I probably will. I'll probably just give them a wash as well, because You know, I have them on public transport and stuff, but I haven't blocked these, and I don't know if blocking will maybe help, but these shed. They definitely shed a bunch. So I have been dealing with white fluff all over my black trousers for a couple of weeks, but I can deal with that because of how warm they are. They've been really comfortable. I would highly recommend knitting them. The cable pattern was really fun as well. You have 2 real cables going down the sides, and then the cable in the middle is like a faux cable where you slip a stitch and then you knit 2, and then you pass the first stitch over the next 2, that's it. And then you make up for it by doing an increase in the next round. I found it very clear, very well explained. It was my first time reading charts, and I thought they were very well explained, the key was clear, so no issues there, would highly recommend. And I am considering making myself a pair in black because, as I said, most of my wardrobe is black, all of my coats are black, so I think a black pair of mittens would be a good choice. So that's it for my finished objects. I do now have 3 works in progress, and I'm gonna start with my sweater number 15. This has been going on for a while, and I do have some yarn attached to it, so this has been going on for a while. I think I cast this on maybe end of October or beginning of November, so it's been about a month and a half, I guess, and this is how far through I am with it. I don't have any needles in it at the moment because I've finished the body. I do still need to do the ribbing at the bottom, and I've been working on one of the sleeves, but I needed the 3mm needles to make a pair of socks, which I will talk about later. So I've just put this on a piece of scrap yarn, but I will return to working on it hopefully by the weekend. So sweater number 15 is a all over cable drop shoulder jumper. It has a really classic construction where you cast on the back of the neck, and then you work increases to shape the shoulders, and then you put stitches on hold, and you pick up stitches around, kind of along either shoulder to work the 2 halves of the front, join them together around the neck, and then knit a bit longer, shape the armholes, and join everything together in the round, and then you do the collar and the sleeves and everything. So I have just about finished the body. I have yet to do the ribbing at the bottom, and I will talk a bit about that later. But I will talk a little bit about the yarn that I'm using first. So this is meant to be knit at a 23 stitch gauge on 4.5mm needles, and the recommended yarn is either a strand of the Gepard Kit Setter with a strand of the Wild and Soft, or a strand of Knitting for Olive Merino with a strand of soft silk mohair. Now, I am knitting this very off gauge. I'm knitting this at around a 36 stitch gauge, which compared to the 23 stitches this is meant to be knit at is quite a big difference. However, because it's a fully cabled pattern, I didn't want, originally, I thought I couldn't knit this with kind of a dark coloured yarn because I was afraid that, like, my first thought was I can't knit this in black because if I do, the cables are not going to show up at all, and if I'm going to spend so much time making such an intricate pattern, or like, it's not complicated, but it is time consuming, so if I'm going to spend so much time on something, then I do want the texture to really show up well. And so I thought I was going to have to knit it in a light coloured yarn, and then one of my, well, I don't know if I can call it a favourite, like, small hand-dyed business, but I've been following them for a while, which are called Lanivendole. They're an Italian small business, and I've been kind of eyeing up their yarn for a while, and they recently came out with this really, really lovely grey colour for their Chic blend. This is a 60% wool, 20% alpaca, and 20% mohair 2-ply yarn, and it's a non-superwash wool. And I saw it and I thought, this is just a dark enough grey that I would really love to wear it, because black is my favourite colour to wear. Not very representative by my jumper today, but it is grey, so neutral, so fine. I do have like some white and beige jumpers and I do like that, but if I can wear an all black outfit, then it's a good day. So I thought this would be just a dark enough yarn that I would really, really love the finished result. but also it's still light enough and only very slightly variegated to where the cables still show up really well. And so even though it's a 2-ply and I'm knitting very off gauge, I decided to I would just size up and kind of try to make up for the difference in gauge other ways. I could have held a double, however, when I first bought the yarn, they only had 5 skeins in stock. I have since been able to pick up some more of this, so I have this and other 2 skeins left. The other 2, which are the other 2 that I picked up at a later date, are from a different kind of dye lot, but because this is hand dyed, there's a bit of a difference between the individual skeins within the same dye lot anyways, and I did try to alternate skeins, I think quite near the beginning, like when I was switching from the first to the second skein, I think kind of around here, and I didn't really like the result as much. There's a very subtle variegation when you're knitting it just normally throughout a skein, and I found that by alternating skeins it was making it more obvious, and there isn't enough of a difference between the 2 skeins, like when you just join another one, it just kind of blends in. So I haven't been alternating skeins apart from when I finished my first and started the second, kind of between those. I tried to fade in my second skein, but other than that I haven't done that, and it looks really well. There's no like weird stripes or, you know, major differences in colour, but I have been kind of holding the 2 skeins from the different dye lot aside, just in case I need them. I'm hoping I'll be able to finish both sleeves with the skeins from the first dye lot, and if I do need to get started with the other ones, I will try to use those for the cuffs and the bottom hem of the body and the collar, so it's maybe not as noticeable that it's a different dye lot. So what I did is I was meant to, by kind of pattern recommendation, I would have been meant to knit the smallest size, which I think is an extra small. So I sized up to a medium because I thought that would be kind of enough to make up for the difference in gauge a little bit, but not entirely, because the pattern has, I think, 25 centimeters for positive ease that is recommended, and I did not want that. I wanted a much more fitted garment anyways. This is sort of the fit that I tend to like for my jumpers, and like this is a fairly fitted jumper. I think it maybe has like 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease. And so I thought I would size up, but I wouldn't size up enough to entirely make up for the difference in gauge. And then I was kind of trying it on quite regularly, and I ended up making a couple of other modifications. So I added, you probably can't see anything. I knit one extra cable repeat on either side of the, kind of either half of the front before shaping for the neckline and joining the 2 halves of the front. Because I was trying it on and I realized that if I knit that to pattern, it was going to give me a really small like neck opening, and then the collar would maybe have ended up looking weird, or it would have kind of come up a bit more than I would have liked it to, and that worked out really, really well. And then I also cast on extra stitches underneath the armholes. So you're meant to, I think for my size, I was meant to cast on 1 extra cable repeat underneath each armhole, and I cast on 3. So I was just kind of trying it on and measuring, and I think, you know, I think that fits really well. I'll put a picture of it. I tried it on a couple of days ago when I finished the body before picking up for sleeves, and it fits perfectly, and I'm so happy with it. I have since started working on my first sleeve. I haven't made too much progress. I've only done 2 cable repeats, but I am also making a little modification on the sleeves, because by pattern you're not meant to do any decreases along the sleeves, but I thought that would just give me a ridiculously large sleeve at the cuff, and I think that's a really cute look, but it's not a very practical look for an everyday wear jumper. So I wanted to work some decreases, and I have been doing that. I've been working decreases kind of along the underside of the arm, and I will maybe talk a bit more in depth about those hopefully in the next episode of this podcast, when I have a finished garment to show you, if everything goes well. And I will try to kind of put details of that in my Ravelry page as well. But it's been working well, I think, so far. But I don't want to talk about it in depth too much because I've only really done one so far. So that is my sweater number 15. I hope I didn't really forget to talk about anything, but just a moment of appreciation for the cables. Oh yeah, the cables. I have not really been having any issues with the cables. I think it's, like as I said, I don't think it's a very difficult pattern. It's just a very repetitive and time-consuming pattern. And I'm really glad that I knit the body first. I know some people like to knit the sleeves first. I'm so glad that I knit the body first because the sleeves are flying by now. Like I did these 2 repeats in, I don't know, I didn't time it, but it was so quick. For the body, after I joined everything in the round, it was taking me like 15 minutes to do a single round, and then cabling rounds were taking twice as long as that. So it's a patience knit. That's kind of what I meant by it. But it has been so much fun. I know My Favorite Things Knitwear has a couple of other patterns kind of similar to this that do have, I haven't mentioned this, but I'll try to show close-ups of it as well, that have kind of her signature increases along the shoulders where you carry a cable throughout, which I think is a really, really beautiful detail. And I would definitely knit some other cable patterns of hers. I know she quite recently came out with one, and I keep seeing people talking about it on Instagram, and I've not even finished this one, and I already want to cast on that. So that is my first work in progress. Then moving on, I have another jumper, another slightly more ambitious, I guess, jumper project, which is my Celeste sweater. This is a very recent cast on. I cast this on last Friday, and I'm recording this on the Wednesday, so it's only been like 5 or so days, but I've not really worked on it this week. I did all of this over the weekend. I'm not sure how to show this particularly well because the edges are kind of rolling up and I don't want to kind of lose any of my stitches. This is a pattern by Petit Knit. I think it's a pretty popular pattern, and I've had some people say that it's a good first colourwork project because there's not really any very long floats. I think the longest float is maybe 3 stitches, so you don't really have to worry about catching floats, and it's also it looks more complicated than it is because there's 5 colours in it, but you're only ever working with 2 colours together on any given row. So I've really enjoyed the colourwork process so far. I am a continental knitter. I was taught English, and that was part of the reason why I think knitting never clicked with me. I just find English knitting very mechanical, and I was always dropping stitches. Like, I don't know, I just found it very confusing. And because I'd been crocheting for a little bit before I picked up knitting again, I thought I would try continental, because you hold the yarn in the left hand like you do with crochet, and that really just clicked really quickly. So I think for colourwork it's maybe a bit easier because I can just hold both yarns continental and it's a bit easier to pick. So that's just how I've been doing it. And where to start? I'm going to start with the yarn again. So this pattern recommends you to knit it using the Sandnes Garn Gynt, and I really wanted to try out that yarn. None of my local yarn stores carry Sandnes Garn, but I was able to order some online. So I'm using Sandnes Garn Gynt for my main colour and then 3 of my contrast colours. And I will really quickly just give you the numbers. These will be linked below as well, but I'm using 1002 white for my main colour, and then for my contrast colours I'm using 1065 Charcoal Melange, which is this one, which I believe is a Petit Knit collaboration colour. This is a really, really pretty dark grey. I would 100% knit an entire jumper in this. I'm using colour 3854 Spiced Apple. This is a really lovely sort of terracotta kind of colour. I do think it's showing up a little bit more orange on camera than it is in real life. It's quite a desaturated, kind of fairly neutral. It's not too cool toned, it's not too warm toned a colour. I don't think it really leans too orange or too pink, but it's a really, really pretty colour. And then I'm using 2650 Beige Grey Melange, which is this one, which is a really warm tone grey, I would say, and it's a really nice colour as well. And then I was looking for sort of like a mid-brown. I think they have a colour that's called something like mid-brown that I couldn't find in stock anywhere, and so I ended up getting the Ístex Léttlopi in the colour Murkey, which is number 1420, which is this really lovely, just kind of mid dark beige, light brown sort of colour. It's slightly variegated. There's some parts that are a bit warmer toned, there's some darker, more grey specks in it, but I don't think it's showing up too variegated in the final knit. I think if you were to just knit it on its own, it maybe would, but I think it's a really pretty colour. Now, all of this yarn is 100% non-superwash wool. The Gynt is Norwegian wool, and then the Léttlopi is Icelandic wool, I believe. I will say, if you're sensitive to wool, this is probably not the yarn for you. So the Celeste does have a little bit of high neck, and I don't think it will really be an issue. I did knit that with the Gynt. As you can see, I do like wearing kind of turtlenecks and high neck jumpers, so I don't think that will be too much of an issue. I'm not particularly sensitive to wool. With the Léttlopi, I will say I probably wouldn't knit a high neck jumper in this. This does feel a bit scratchier. It feels a bit more rustic. I do really like very woolly wool, and I am really enjoying knitting with this, and I think it's just giving like peak cozy jumper vibes, and the wool is really playing into that. So I'm really happy I am working with this, but I don't know if I would recommend the yarn if you're sensitive to wool. I don't think I would. In terms of the pattern, as I said, this is my first colourwork project. You cast on kind of at the collar, and then you work, I think you're meant to do, I don't remember, I did 6 centimeters for the collar, and I know I did it a little bit shorter than what the pattern recommended, because I like a high neck jumper, but I don't like it to come up so high just under my chin. I like it kind of like this, just a little bit lower. And I thought this would give me kind of that look. And then you just go straight into the colourwork. This is fully charted. She also provides like an empty chart for you to colour in, and I did kind of copy the chart over on Stitch Fiddle, which is like a colourwork chart maker. I basically just coloured in each square with the colours that I am using, and then exported that as a PDF, so I'm using that as my reference, because I think some of the colours that are dark colours in her chart I'm using as my light colours, and so I thought it was just going to get really confusing. And it's been a really enjoyable process so far. I don't really have too much to comment on it. The beginning of the yoke really flew by, because you don't have so many stitches. I think I've just started the 3rd part of the chart, and it's going a lot slower now. You know, I will just keep working on it. I can't really comment on it too much so far because it's just, I've not done so much of it, but so far it's been really enjoyable. I will also show you kind of my floats from the inside. I think it's looking really neat from the inside as well. I've been doing my best to keep my tension fairly loose, especially in any section that has just a slightly longer float. And I don't think I've really had any issues with it so far. I think it's looking quite good. And it does kind of stretch out a bit when I pull it, so I think I'll be fine. And I think that's what I have to say about it. I did meet Gauge. I don't know if I said that, but I did meet Gauge, and I'm knitting this on, I think, the recommended needle size. Is it 4.5? Yes, 4.5mm needles, or US 7. And then last but not least, I have kind of a half-finished object. I have a sock. I literally cast this off 5 minutes before pressing recording. So this is not blocked, and it's also my first sock ever. which is really exciting. So these are the Slow Morning Socks DK by Woolen Sun, and they are a free sock pattern. They're a free ribbed sock pattern. I thought I wanted to knit DK socks because I just wanted like a quick knit to try the sock structure without like taking so much time working with a fingering weight yarn. I will definitely be making some thinner yarn socks. I think so far I've understood that I do prefer to work with like smaller needles. I knit the Sky number 1, I knit on 6mm needles, and it was fun, but the 3mm cable jumper was so much nicer. And this was also knit on 3mm needles, which is why I needed the needles from that jumper. I probably will be buying more sets of needles, especially I think 3mm for like summer camisoles if I want to have more cast on at the same time, but I decided that's a problem for another day. So this was a really quick and fun knit. I cast this on a couple of days ago and I finished it this morning. I made the smaller size. The pattern comes in 3 sizes. I made size 1. And I cast on with the recommended German cast on, which is a variation on the long tail cast on. I'd never done that before, but I think if you know how to do the long tail cast on, it's not particularly complicated, but it is a lot stretchier. Like this does stretch out quite far, and obviously the ribbing is also quite quite stretchy. I will say my original intention was to knit them quite long in the leg, so that I would be able to wear them kind of with the cuff rolled down like this, which is what you see in one of the pictures from the pattern. However, these are stretching out quite a lot around my ankle and my calf, and so I noticed that just because I was trying it on as I went, and so in the end I decided to not make them so tall, and I knit about 10 centimeters before I started the heel. You do a short row heel, and then you keep knitting. You knit stockinette at the bottom of the foot, and then you keep the ribbing going for the top of the foot, and then the toe is kind of a symmetrical toe. I know you can do like wedge toe. Is this a wedge toe? Or I know that you can do like asymmetrical ones, so you can do maybe more round ones. I'm not sure. But anyways, that's what I did. And it was a really enjoyable knit, but I'm gonna knit the second one. But I was also thinking it would be really cute to knit up a quick pair for my mum as well, so we can match, and I was hoping to be able to do that before Christmas. And I think if I end up doing that, I will size up, potentially even 2 sizes, so that I can actually make it how I want it to, which is like kind of a longer version with the roll down cuff. And so that when I do that, the ribbing doesn't stretch out so much, because I don't think it looks that nice when the ribbing is really stretched out. It's not uncomfortable, like it fits fine. These will be great house socks, but I just think it looks a bit more polished when the ribbing is kind of a bit tighter than when it is like stretched out really far. So I think, I don't know if I'll size up just one or if I'll go to the biggest size, but that's kind of my thoughts so far on it. And I knit these holding 2 strands of DROPS Fabel together. This is a very standard fingering weight sock yarn. It's superwash wool with, I think, 25% nylon, and it's 205 meters per 50 grams. So that is my last finished, kind of half-finished object / work in progress. I will show you, I have some yarn to show you, so I'm going to go into that just a tiny bit. So that was my last work in progress. I do have, as I said, I do have some yarn to show you for a couple of other projects that I'm planning on casting on soon. I also got, when I went to the yarn store the other day to get sock yarn for this pair of socks, I also got some of the DROPS Fabel in a different colour. So the one that I was talking about before is colour 106, and it's this really, really nice red. And then this other one that I got is colour 101, and it's kind of a just a bit of a darker beige, and I'm going to use this to make some socks for myself. I'm planning on trying to make the Petal Drop socks by Florence Miller. They are kind of a lace sock pattern, but she has a video to walk you through the entirety of it. So I thought it'd be fun as like a first lace sock project, to kind of have someone guide me through it. And I really like the way that Florence explains things. I watched her step-by-step sweater video. I've not actually knit that sweater. I probably will at some point, but I watched the entire video all the way through to just try to like soak up some knowledge. And I think she explains things really well. Then I have some yarn from BC Garn. This is the BC Garn Summer in Cashmere, which is 90% organic cotton and 10% cashmere. I have this in the color number 30, and this is 165 meters per 50 grams. I got, I think, 6 balls of this, so 300 grams, and I'm planning on using this to knit the Campanula Tee by Cupid Knits. That is a really cute pattern that I'm very excited to cast on and to have to be able to wear during spring and summer. However, I also know that it will be a very long work in progress piece, and so I want to cast it on quite soon, kind of in winter, so I have it ready for the beginning of the warm weather season. So the Campanula Tee is an irregular rib tee that is meant to be knit up at a 30 stitch gauge on 2.5mm needles, and then you use a 2mm needles, I believe, to do the ruffles around the neck, the sleeves and the bottom of the t-shirt, and they look so pretty from what I've been able to see from, you know, the test knitters and everyone that's knitted so far, but I know that it will be a long knit because it's rib and it's knit on such small needles, so I wanted to pick up the yarn quite soon, to be able to cast it on quite soon, and I saw that when I was ordering the Gynt, I saw that they had this yarn in stock, in store, and so I bought some of it as well. So I'm hoping to cast that on potentially sometime in February, I think, to maybe have it ready for like April or so. I don't think I'd really be able to wear a t-shirt before then anyways, but I think that will be kind of my timeline. And then while I was at it, I also picked up some more yarn for another colourwork project, which I am so excited about. So I picked up some Ístex Léttlopi. I've 100% said that wrong. This is a 100% wool unspun yarn, and it's 300 meters per 100 grams. So one of these is 100 grams. I have one skein in the colour, does it not say the colour on it? Oh, I think it's 1426, and it's dark amber heather, if I remember correctly. And this will be my contrast colour. And then I have 3 balls, or like 3, what do you even call this? 3 cakes of the colour 0001, which is just white. And this will be my main colour. I was originally planning on doing the opposite, and having the kind of the brown as my main colour and then the white as my contrast colour. But then they, after I placed the order, they sent me an email saying that they did have 3 cakes, I guess, of the brown, but 2 were from one dye lot and then 1 was from a different dye lot, and they could see a little bit of a difference between them. And so I thought, and they asked me like if that would be okay, or if I wanted to switch to a different color, and I thought, can you just switch the white and the brown? And they did. So I will be using that to knit the Hitter sweater. It's just called Hitter, by the Petite Knitter, which is another colourwork jumper. This is meant to be knit up at a 22 stitch gauge with 3.5mm needles, and this is the recommended yarn for it. I am really curious to work with an unspun yarn. I have been watching some videos about it. I know that I will have to be a bit more careful with it, because if you pull it then it does just come apart, but I also know that it's really easy to just felt the ends back together, and then just continue knitting with it. So we'll see how that goes. I do kind of my plans going forward at the minute. It is nearly the holidays, like the winter break. I have uni until Friday and then I'm home for a while. So my plans are to knit up the other sock and hopefully a pair of socks similar to this for my mum. And hopefully during the holidays I can finish my sweater number 15. That is kind of my main goal. I have the 2 sleeves and all of the ribbing and the collar left. It will be a lot of ribbing. I believe it's twisted rib as well, which, yikes. But hopefully I will be able to finish that. And hopefully I can make some progress on my Celeste as well, because I think this is just giving me like skiing jumper vibes. And I will be going skiing over the holidays, though I wear, like, I've got ski wear, I've got thermals. I'm not going to be wearing my poor, like, my really precious wool jumper. But I think that's about it. And then once I've got those off my needles, I maybe will be casting on the other colourwork jumper. There'll probably be some other bits and bobs in the meantime, which I guess we'll get to talk about next time. But I hope this wasn't, I don't know, I hope this wasn't too rambly. I hope I've given enough information about everything. Obviously I'm not a very experienced knitter, so I've tried to kind of do my best and try to give as much information as I can based on what I've seen other people do in their podcasts. But I hope this was able to just keep you company for a while. I'd be really curious if you're also a knitter to know what you're working on currently. And I think I will see you soon, or maybe even in a month's sort of time with another video like this, but I will see you soon if you're a regular viewer with a normal video of mine. And if you're watching this around sort of Christmas time, if you celebrate, anyways, just in general, happy holidays. I hope that you're getting a little bit of free time to rest and relax as the year comes to an end. And yeah, I hope that you just have a really lovely rest of your day. Bye!